If the people are happy, well protected, things will go better. If they are not, there will be crisis. And it is those things that we need to really understand and appreciate. That firstly, there must be peace, there must be equity, fairness, and justice in everything that we do, without which there can be development. And I think that is very critical, because the criminals, the bandits, the terrorists, the insurgents are all living within the communities. If the communities today decide that we will not support these criminals, we will not support these bandits, we will not support these terrorists, they will not survive. A few days ago I mentioned, how are they getting their fuel? How are they getting their food? It's from the communities that are giving them this. The challenges we are facing as military men is that we have members of the public that are also supporting them, giving them information, providing fuel, providing food, and that keeps from giving them this ability to go. So the military will continue to do its job. We will make mistakes because we're human beings. They will never be deliberate. And that is why we have open opportunities. If any of our men is doing something that is not supposed to do, we always appeal to the public. Please don't take laws into your hand. Please report. We take action.
Thank you so much for explaining in details. I've been, since I got my appointment as the SC on community engagement, insecurity has been a major challenge for us in North Central, which has also affected our engagement with the communities. So before I go into any community, I have to be protected. So in your view, North Central is different from Northeast and every other region. What are the drivers of protected conflict in North Central? And what's your view about attacks? It's common in this region. What is your suggestion and what are your recommendations?
Well, thank you. Like I said initially, good governance. What we realize is that when the people are well catered for, when we operate down into the villages. I've been to villages, there is no water, there is no electricity, there is no road, there is no government presence. Now, hunger, illiteracy are a powerful combination if left to be taken over by terrorists or bandits, and that's what they are using. Once the people do not have a sense of belonging, once the people are not benefiting from democratic norms, it creates and opens up the issue. Most of the crises we have in Nigeria are man-made. I always make that very clear. That if today all Nigerians decide that, look, we want peace and we're ready to walk the talk, we will have peace in Nigeria. So it's man-made. And which means if man is ready to tackle it, and it is not just a wishful thinking, it must be deliberate, starting from the government at all levels. We need to have our local governments working. We need to have a good judiciary. We need to have a good legal system. We need to have a good policing system. We need to have a good border management system. We're working together with our traditional rulers, which is very critical. Our traditional rulers have a major role to play in what is happening in communities because crime is localized. Local governments, traditional rulers are the ones that are directly in contact with the communities. And so they have a good understanding of what's going on. So assuming a state with 20 local governments, I have 20 local government chairmen. Each local government chairman will be taking care of the crime and criminality happening within his local government before it gets to the state, before it gets to the federal. But since we don't have the local government, so which means the 20 problems we'll be having in each local government are now transferred to the governor, transferred to the federal.
CDS, we now have local government autonomy, and we're working towards that. I think Mr. President...
That is why it's important. That's why it's critical. Yes, I'm very happy that Mr. President has done that. Now it is for it to actually be fully implemented. Growing up, I was born and raised in Sokoto. Local governments were working. Okay. Anything you needed, you don't bother, you go to the local government and it is sorted out. So that's why my appeal is that we must support the federal government, ensuring that our local governments are working, in also empowering our traditional rulers to also have a say on security, because security is localized. Most of the challenges we're having, again, are political,
okay,
which means political decisions. Is it about farmer headers clash? Is it about communities being taken over? Is it about the right of citizenship and non-citizenship? These are political issues. Is it about boundary demarcation? Because we have some areas, what we are facing is boundary demarcation. So, and each region has its own peculiarities on the challenge they have. In the Northeast is different from North Central, from Northwest, all. But again, crime crime and criminals have a way of coming together because they have a common factor. And that's why it's important for the good ones to also come together to fight those criminals.
So for the North Central, we have about over 700 youths who are volunteers for our Citizens Assembly. So the Citizen Assembly is a group of young people who have dedicated themselves to be reporting to the presidency exactly what goes on in their community. And we did that launch last year. Your representative was also there. Because we felt, for us to really get into what is going on at the community level, we need dedicated youths who are agents of change, who will report. So when they send reports, for instance, on any community, they put the name of their chiefs and their phone number. They put the name of stakeholders and their phone number, and they now put their name as a volunteer of the Citizen Assembly and their phone number. And I'm happy the National Assembly is considering, constitutional amendment, making sure that the traditional rulers are really considered as, the lowest level of government and connected to the people so that they can also strengthen the peace that we're looking at. But also, I also wanted to pick out the point from the earlier question about the reprisal attacks. What are the issues? Why is this so common in the North Central region?
Yes, reprisal attacks, which means there was an attack before somebody will reprise.
Yes.
So it's important for us to make sure that we're able to step in. Firstly, preventive. They say prevention is better than cure. Why not stop the attacks first so that there won't be any reprisal or any attacks? And how do we do that? That's what I mentioned. How do we do that? Fairness, justice, equity. Any society that there is no rule of law, we will know by nature. If you give birth to a kid, a child today, and nobody trains him, he's going to grow wild. It's natural. So if a society grows without rule of law, there will be breakdown of law and order. And so people feel that crime pays because there is no punishment, no prosecution. And that's why it's very critical. Our legal system, our policing system, our correctional system must be up and doing. Because if you commit a crime and you are punished, it serves as deterrence to others. But when a person commits one offense, nothing happens. Somebody does the second one, nothing happens. I mean, it's by nature that every human being wants shortcuts. Why should I go a long distance if I know I can take a shorter cut or I can make money quite easily without being prosecuted? Absolutely. But if somebody does something wrong, he's investigated, he's prosecuted, he's gone to jail. Everybody's seen it, people will pick dressing. And I tell people, Nigerians are law-abiding. But any society that you don't have law and order, impunity will set in. And this is and that's why it's important, it's critical that we must look at our policing system, our legal system to ensure that we address the concerns. Now again, let me take you back into education. You mentioned about the youths.
Yes.
While we were growing up in primary school, we had history being taught. We have civics where it is told respect for each other, respect for human life, respect for the country, loyalty to the nation. We don't have that anymore. For whatever reason, once you allow people grow without knowing where they are from and where they are heading to, it's chaos that you are creating. And this is where we are. So we must go back to this. And again, to address this, most of us have had privileges of traveling abroad. Now, sometimes we go there and we wonder, why are things working? It's not by magic. These things just didn't fall from heaven. They deliberately worked and ensured that their communities are safe and secured through law and order. Why are we not doing the same? Those are the things we need to look and put on. So we have to look at, firstly, how do we get leadership? How do we create leadership? It must develop from the grassroots coming outwards. History must be taught. Civics must be taught, how we can respect and know that as Nigerians, we must love one another. We must be law-abiding. And there is penalty for crime and criminality. And if we're able to put that together, I can tell you Nigeria will be better.
Thank you so much. There have been concerns from the community members about justice not being enforced, about crimes being implemented and nobody is being held accountable. So, and this has led to lack of trust in the security agency. As a top military chief, what are you doing? What are your mechanisms or strategies of the military in employing or gaining trust from the community?
For us in the military, anywhere we are protecting and we lose the confidence of the people we are protecting, then we're not succeeding, then something is wrong. And that's why it's important that, like, always tell all our commanders by our training, that it's important that the people you are protecting feel happy that you are protecting them. If they have criminals within them, they'll be able to tell you who are those criminals so that you don't give overall punishment for everybody for an offense committed by an individual. We must be able to isolate who are those ones committing this crime, and people should see that those people are being prosecuted for their acts and for their actions. And I think that is good. If you go abroad and you commit an offense, there is a 50-50 possibility that you are going to be arrested. Why? Because they have a database. Every individual has a number, they have his thumbprint, they have his picture, his address, and everything about him. We need to develop that. Sometimes people say because of political reasons. No, but we will not allow political reasons to destroy our country because we're only undoing ourselves. And that's why it's critical. We must have now with ICT, with technology, we can have a comprehensive data of every Nigerian in the world. Every Nigerian that is given birth to, anyone that dies, we must be able to develop those aspects, and which means it will make crime. If you commit an offense, your fingerprint is got or something is found, you will be discovered. And once you are discovered, there will be prosecution. So the military continues to interface just like what we're doing now. We use the media, and I want to use this opportunity to also appreciate the media for providing platforms for us to discuss. And like I said, I've commended you for this, because what I realize is we need to talk more and to talk sincerely with the sense of purpose that we want to achieve peace. We know this North Central. The North Central has been one of the most peaceful zones in the country. This is where we have a lot of food, the food basket of Nigeria. Absolutely. We have a lot of resources. Except we regulate these things properly, this will continue to fester, and that's why it's important.
Another major concern is proliferation of arms. It's like everybody have arms. We also want to protect ourselves, because people will not sit down and be watching themselves being killed. So what are your concerns about the proliferation of arms in the North Central region and how it's affecting security?
I think it must be controlled. And like I said, all is linked, because again, you have these illegal minings that creates illegal money, all these kidnappings. What do they do next? Use the money to buy arms. How do they get these arms? We have a porous border. So border management is critical. We must be able to secure our borders, because like I said, over time, there are a lot of people that don't mean this country well. And we must always realize that. We must never take this country for granted. There are a lot of individuals, a lot of countries that don't mean us well. They want us to disintegrate, and they will do anything to encourage us. And giving these people this amount of money, they're getting unregulated money, they used to buy arms because our borders are empty. Just a few days ago, I was in a session, I think at the Voice of Nigeria's summit, and I mentioned, and people, a lot of people, it raised a lot of eyebrows. When you have a critical challenge, you sit down, assess your problems, and see the best solution for it. From my assessment, and after traveling around the world, if we want to secure our borders, we must learn to fence our borders. Now, people will say, it's going to be expensive, but then, which is better? Do you sit down and die or protect yourself? I think protection is better than cure. The law and order should take anybody that is found illegally with this thing should be prosecuted. But first and foremost, like I said, we must have peace. If we have peace, there won't be any need for anybody to carry any arms. And that is the critical aspect that we must follow.
Thank you very much, sir. Personally, not as a CDS, but as a person who have been managing security issues for over time, and knowing fully well, you could hear some of the goodwill messages, issues about land, I'm engaging, it's my land. From your experience, how will you advise community leaders that are here on how to manage land disputes or land issues in the North Central? Because they are all here, and you could hear from their goodwill messages that issues about land has been a major driver for this insecurity. So your own personal advice? My personal advice is we should sit down with sincerity to sit down and discuss this. God has a purpose that has brought us here together as individuals. Whether Christians, Muslims, from whatever tribe you are, God has a purpose, and it is not for us to destroy ourselves, but to build each other. Our diversity should be our strengths, not our weakness. The idea of using our weakness to divide us should not and never be encouraged. The issue of land is very critical in Africa generally, and not even in Africa. If you go to America, every American is trying to protect his country. This morning, we know that Donald Trump blocked about 12 countries from coming to America. It is because they felt threatened from these areas. So we must, and that's why I said it's important, is the political decision.
So we must sit down critically and address ourselves as Nigerians as regards land. Who owns the land? We must not leave it to just fester and thinking that it will solve itself. No. If it is allowed, people will continue killing themselves for that. There must be regulation. We have laws that govern these issues. So we should not jettison those things. We must sit down and address them. The truth about it is that we must tell ourselves the truth. And I think we're trying to hide from the truth. So when we sit down, we just browse about it, go through the symptoms and go. No, we must sit down and think about the critical aspects. What do we do about the land? How do we protect ourselves? How do we consider ourselves as Nigerians wherever it is that you're staying? And I think political decision will make a great difference. And that's why it's important. I know mostly here we either Christians or Muslims, probably a few traditionalists. If we say we trust God, then we must do things that God says we should. And that is, first and foremost, love ourselves and love one another. And we must be sincere in whatever it is we're doing. The military, no matter how deployed we are, cannot solve this problem without us deciding on our own as individuals, as Nigerians, that we want this thing to end. What I have realized is that there's a lot of falsehood, a lot of false narrative that is ongoing that we must critically, sincerely address within ourselves. God is with us. God will see us through. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Can we give him a round of applause, please? Thank you.
Thank you very much, CDS.